What if I told you the most elite command unit in Russia, one rebuilt again and again since the start of the war, may have just been completely erased in a single strike? And that Vladimir Putin might be fearing for his own life as a result? That's not a theory. That's what's being reported right now, and it could change everything. Here's what we know. Ukrainian forces, with help from underground partisans, launched a precision HIMARS strike in occupied Melitopol. The target? A heavily fortified Russian command post. Not only were 5 Russian soldiers confirmed dead, but a crucial satellite communication station used by Russian military leadership was obliterated. But it gets worse, much worse. Reports, including confirmations from Russian military bloggers, claimed that the entire command of Russia's 155th Guards Naval Infantry Brigade was wiped out in that same operation. Gone. 4 HIMARS rockets hit dead on, no survivors. This brigade was elite, or at least it used to be. It's already been rebuilt multiple times since 2022. Now it's been decapitated again. So what does it mean when one of Russia's most capable military units loses all of its leadership? And how does that ripple through the rest of the Russian military chain? Keep watching. Because this isn't just about a battlefield loss. This is about the psychological collapse of a regime. This wasn't a one-off strike. What's unfolding now is a systematic decapitation campaign. Ukraine isn't just going after Russian tanks or troops. They're going after brains, not just brawn. Across occupied territories, a wave of precision attacks and covert sabotage has zeroed in on Russian leadership. Ukrainian special forces, armed with real-time intel and Western-grade weapons, are surgically removing key command nodes. Think about it. Not frontline soldiers, but the commanders, the planners, the coordinators. According to multiple Ukrainian sources and confirmed by independent observers, these strikes are part of a broader strategy to paralyze the Russian war machine from the inside out. And it's working. Russian operational capabilities in several sectors are crumbling. Orders aren't coming, coordination is lost, units are flailing, and that's deadly in war. Let's go back to the 155th Guards Naval Infantry Brigade. They were considered elite shock troops. Now, with their leadership annihilated, they're a body without a head. And the Russian military is scrambling to rebuild their command yet again. This tactic isn't just brutal, it's psychological warfare. Russian commanders now live in fear. Every move, every briefing, every location, they wonder, am I being watched, tracked, next? And in the Kremlin, that fear is contagious. Because if top commanders in occupied zones aren't safe, what does that say about the man at the top? Stick around, because we're about to explore how this battlefield chaos is bleeding into Putin's inner world. The paranoia, the isolation, and the growing fear that he could be next.
So here's the chilling truth. While commanders fall on the battlefield, something far more secretive is happening behind Kremlin walls. Vladimir Putin, once seen as the untouchable mastermind of Russia's resurgence, is now reportedly surrounded by layers of paranoia thicker than any bulletproof glass. Intelligence sources and multiple independent reports suggest he's become obsessed with one thing: survival. You'd think it was a Hollywood movie, but this is real. Before every public appearance, Putin's security teams reportedly inspect sewers, drain pipes, even manholes along the route. He won't walk the same corridor twice. And when he meets world leaders, he allegedly uses them, literally, as human shields, placing them between himself and the crowd. Why the panic? Because the strikes in Melitopol and the elimination of top commanders aren't just military blows. They're signals that Ukraine has eyes and reach everywhere, even where Russia thought it was invincible. It's not just Ukraine saying this. US and European intelligence agencies have picked up chatter suggesting Putin believes he's being hunted, not just politically, but physically. Some reports claim he's doubled his food tasters, relocated residences constantly, and severely limits contact even with his inner circle. Zelensky himself made it blunt: Putin will die soon. That's not just a throwaway insult, it's a calculated psychological punch, a reminder that no fortress is impenetrable and no throne is eternal. Is Putin cracking under pressure? Or is this just the start of something darker? Next, we'll dive into how Putin's fear is shaping Russia's next move and why this fear could be the most dangerous weapon in the entire war. Fear, when it seeps into the decision-making of a nuclear-armed autocrat, doesn't just stay inside the palace, it leaks out, and sometimes it explodes. Here's the terrifying part: Analysts now believe Putin's growing paranoia could trigger increasingly erratic and escalatory decisions. He's not just lashing out on the battlefield. He's repositioning the entire chessboard. Why? Because a cornered predator becomes unpredictable. And this one has nukes. Let's be clear. No one credible is claiming Putin's ready to push the button tomorrow. But here's what is happening. Russian military doctrine is quietly shifting. Discussions once considered taboo, like the use of tactical nuclear weapons, are now showing up in state-aligned think tanks and military briefings. That's not nothing. That's how escalation starts. Western intelligence and military analysts are on high alert. And recent escalations aren't helping. Ukrainian strikes are now hitting deep inside Russian territory, from air bases to command centers that were once thought untouchable. That strategic reach rattles the Kremlin to its core. This isn't just about protecting territory anymore. It's about saving face. About sending a message, we still have teeth. And when fear mixes with the need to look powerful, that's when rational thinking breaks down. The Kremlin has already ramped up airstrikes on Ukrainian civilian areas. But what happens when that no longer feels like enough for Putin? When humiliation piles on, when his inner circle starts whispering about failure, the nightmare scenario isn't just Putin losing. It's Putin knowing he's losing and choosing to take the whole table down with him. For the first time since the invasion began, the war is no longer confined to Ukrainian territory. The front line has shattered, and the battlefield is now inside Russia. Over the past few months, Ukraine has executed some of its boldest operations yet, launching drone and missile strikes deep into Russian territory, not just border towns. We're talking strategic air bases, fuel depots, and even military command centers hundreds of kilometers from the front. The psychological impact. Devastating. The myth that Russia was invulnerable at home has been obliterated. The Kremlin had always promised its people that the war was over there. That illusion is gone. Explosions are now rocking regions like Belgorod and Bryansk. Sirens are screaming in places that were once considered sanctuaries, and these aren't random hits. Ukraine is choosing targets that matter, the kind that disrupt military logistics, slow down troop movements, and pierce right into the heart of Russia's war infrastructure. Western intelligence reports and open-source satellite imagery confirm it. Ukraine's reach is expanding. The message is loud and clear. Nowhere is safe. The consequences: Russia is scrambling. Resources are being diverted from the front to protect the homeland. Air defenses are being repositioned, military bases are being hardened, but it's spreading them thin. Every adjustment weakens them somewhere else. This is classic asymmetric warfare. Ukraine doesn't need to match Russia tank for tank. It just needs to keep Russia guessing, bleeding, and off balance. And as the battlefield expands, Putin's fear isn't just for his command, it's for his legacy, his empire, and ultimately his life. Not all wars are fought with tanks and missiles. Some begin with whispers in a hallway, a phone tapped at the wrong moment, or a conversation overheard by the wrong person. Welcome to the silent war inside Russia's intelligence services, where loyalty is currency, and betrayal can come wearing a uniform. Sources from Ukrainian and Western intelligence suggest that fractures are now forming within Russia's own spy agencies, the FSB, GRU, and SVR. The agencies tasked with protecting Putin may now be the very ones watching him most closely. Why? Because when a regime starts to wobble, the spies know first. They have the intercepts, the surveillance, the internal memos. And according to reports, some intelligence factions are quietly questioning Putin's direction, not out of morality, but out of survival. The head of Russia's GRU military intelligence is said to have clashed with Kremlin hardliners over the war's handling. There's chatter about factions forming behind the scenes. Not an outright coup, but the building blocks of one. Remember, Putin himself rose through the KGB. He knows better than anyone that loyalty in the world of espionage is transactional. And as the war drags on, as commanders die in precise strikes, and as Russia bleeds both blood and treasure, the cost of loyalty rises. Could there be a plan to remove him quietly? A reshuffling disguised as illness or retirement? Or will Putin preemptively strike at his own agencies to root out disloyalty? This is where things get truly dangerous, because when spies stop trusting each other, accidents happen. Planes crash, People fall from windows, secrets vanish, and when secrets vanish, so does the illusion of control. Asterisk asterisk, they don't appear on TV. They rarely speak in public. But behind the curtain of the Kremlin, there are figures known among insiders as the shadow generals. These are the men who move divisions with a phone call, shape foreign policy through back channels, and if needed decide who stays in power and who vanishes. As Putin's grip falters, these shadow generals are becoming increasingly important. Some of them are ex-KGB loyalists, men Putin once trusted. Others are ultranationalists, furious at the military's failures and hungry for blood. And then there are the technocrats, quiet, efficient, calculating, watching the chaos unfold, waiting for their moment, according to high-level analysts and leaks from Russian think tanks. There's growing debate within this hidden circle. Some advocate for a brutal doubling down, more strikes, more repression, full mobilization. Others argue that the war is a lost cause and want to negotiate before Russia loses even more. This isn't just a policy debate. It's a potential power struggle, because here's the risk. If these factions clash hard enough, Russia could fracture from within. Think about it. Generals pulling in one direction, intelligence services pulling in another, and a paranoid president trying to hold it all together while looking over his shoulder. This could trigger purges, arrests, and maybe even disappearances inside the military command, not by Ukraine, but by Russia's own hands. It's already happened before. When generals become liabilities, they tend to retire, abruptly and permanently. What we're watching is the slow boil of an internal coup, not with tanks in Red Square, but with secrets, silence, and shadows, and the outcome, it may decide whether Putin remains at the helm or becomes another victim of the very system he built. Asterisk.